Hockey Talk Show on this Tuesday, January 2nd. Welcome back to the program. A little bit of a break for the Christmas holiday, but we have returned, and man, it is nice to be here with you guys talking about some hockey. Number is live and on the screen, 631-438-1768. Curry Yager, 1768, 631-438-1768. We are on Stitcher, TuneIn, iTunes, and now tell your friends. Spotify. You can now listen to the Hockey Talk Show podcast on Spotify. So if Spotify is your thing, by all means, hop on over there and grab yourself some Spotify action, because the Hockey Talk Show now lives on there as well. And remember, rate and review. That is how the Hockey Talk Show grows. We endlessly appreciate that. And we are continuing to grow this thing. A lot of people missing us over the break, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate that. And it's just great to be back talking hockey with you. Really, really excited to talk about the show tonight. We are going to be making our 2018 Stanley Cup predictions. Now, this is something that we'll do, obviously, before the season starts, and it's something that we'll be doing, you know, as the season goes on. I'll make a prediction at the beginning of the year. I'll make a prediction now as we turn the calendar over to 2018. We'll make an all-star game prediction. We'll predict before the playoff starts. We'll predict as we get into the last round. We'll predict and predict and predict basically until we get it right. So we'll be doing a lot of hockey predictions on the show here. So if that is your thing, of course, we'll have it for you right here on the Hockey Talk Show. 631-438-1768 on the number. Let me know in the comments below that you guys are in the room and you're watching the show. See some of you guys in here already. Let me know where you're watching and listening from in the comments. Always welcome. And let's get right into it. Sad to hear about the passing of Johnny Bower. I want to start with this. Of course, we're going to get to the predictions. We're going to get into that. But I'd be remiss if we didn't give a little bit of tip the old cap here to hockey royalty. Johnny Bower, lost him on Boxing Day, day after Christmas, for those of you in the States that are unaware. Much bigger deal up in Canada than it is down here for us in the States. But Johnny Bower was an absolute legend. You don't have to go on and on. A simple Google will show you all the wonderful things about Johnny Bower and everything that he did and continued to do after he was done with the game. A very prominent figure up there in Toronto, and he will certainly be missed. I believe the Leafs are playing tonight. I think they have Tampa, if I'm not mistaken. I might be wrong about that, but it'll essentially be the first time that they are on the ice on home ice, I should say, since the passing of Johnny Bower. So I'm sure they'll have something to talk about for tomorrow. Some sort of a salute, perhaps some sort of a uniform donning. Maybe a patch or something like that would be very, very appropriate. We'll have to wait and see, but I'm sure the Leafs will honor JB in some way, shape, or form. So just want to mention that off to start. Other thing I want to get into before we start to get into predictions for the Stanley Cup final. By the way, on this show, I will tell you who wins the Stanley Cup. That's going to be the prediction. I will tell you who's going to win the Stanley Cup, and you could take it to the bank. You could wager and bet as much money as you'd like. In fact, I would even go as far as to bet some Bitcoins, which are what, 14, 15 grand a coin at this point? I'd bet a Bitcoin or two on your old pal Ant's Stanley Cup predictions, because that's just how good we are. That is how amazing we are at predicting the Stanley Cup winners. We just got it like that. I want to talk about the Winter Classic. What a Winter Classic that was. New Year's Day, yesterday. God, everything is blurry. When you don't get up, I get up at 4:30 in the morning to host the morning show on WEHM radio. When you don't get up for, 10 days, and then you do have to get up at 4:30 in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, little shock to the system. But essentially, I watched the game. It was phenomenally done. I got to congratulate the National Hockey League on this one. I think they super got this one right. I mean, unbelievable job on everything from presentation to picking a good game, which I didn't honestly think it was going to be. You know, I honestly thought that it was going to be a little bit of a wash with Buffalo being involved, but turns out to be a heck of a game with them coming back from 2-0 to tie it up. And just the presentation of the field and how it looked, having Ace Frehley there with the back in the New York groove. It's cheesy as hell, but I liked it. You know, getting Goo Goo Dolls involved, big name band, everybody knows their tunes. And then they're down in there and they're from Buffalo and they got the jerseys on and they're bringing that whole flavor to it, and having Max Weinberg play, and just overall a good game. I loved the way the field looked. I thought they did such an awesome job on Citi Field and bringing it together. Let's bring that up for you guys so you can take a look here and see in case anybody missed it. This was a rendering, but it was basically essentially identical to what the stadium did look like. Sans the snow. There was no snow, but that was okay. There was plenty of wind to contend to, but I just love the overall presentation. The big X signifying the 10th NHL Winter Classic. These new stadiums and the way they're put together, it makes them very, very conducive for hockey games, because these third and first baseline stands are so close to the end boards. There were some wonderful views. I love the highway signs with the team logo on it, and I really love the street presentation with the taxi cabs going by. One of the streets in here was actually a rink where the kids came and played during the intermissions. This taxi cab over here was moving. It dropped off the guys at the beginning of the show to start the program off with. I thought it was cool that they had the logo on the Big Apple that comes out of the center field there, and they had some subway stops peppered throughout. Overall, a really, really nice presentation, and I thought Citi Field was a great place to hold the Winter Classic. And just again, big congratulations to everybody in the National Hockey League. I thought they really, really did a lovely job on putting together what I thought was one of the better Winter Classics, you know. Really, from start to finish, the game was competitive. You know, there were some great elements. Do we wish for snow in the Winter Classic? We do every year, and we don't get it every year. And it's certainly better when we do get it. But overall, I just thought it was a fun game to watch on a New Year's Day when really nothing else was going on in the afternoon. I think, and I can't confirm this, but from what I'm hearing, the owner of the Rangers, James Dolan, is planning on ripping the roof off of Madison Square Garden. That's the plan right now. I can't confirm any of this, but Henrik Lundqvist is 4-0 in outdoor games, and from what I understand, James Dolan, off the record, was heard after the game talking about, let's just rip the roof right. Let's just take the roof. I know it's a famed roof, but to hell with it. We'll take it right off. We'll get everybody umbrellas, get him in there, and get Lundqvist rolling with this undefeated record in the outdoor games. The guy's been outstanding in the outdoor games. He's been outstanding. I thought he played a hell of a game. I thought Buffalo really played a hell of a game. They really impressed me. They really, really did. It's a big stage, and they were down 2-0, and that game started going the way I thought it was going to go, with the Rangers just all over Buffalo, and they were. But credit Buffalo for coming back. I honestly think they have a lot of pieces there. They're one of the teams that I scratch my head about, because I knew that they made some blatant mistakes. Matt Molson, I still think Kyle Okposo is a mistake. I definitely see issues in that team, but Jack Eichel, Ristolainen, Robin Leonard, I really think that they have a pretty interesting core that they can build on and contribute to in the years to come. I really think that they have something there in Buffalo. It ain't there right now, but I think with Eichel signed long-term, it's exciting to see what they put all around that. I don't like the Ryan O'Reilly deal. Again, there's a couple of things I don't really like with that team, but overall, I think they've got a good, again, they've got goaltending, they've got a star center, and you know, they've got a really good defenseman. Like, they have the pieces. Those pieces just have to mature, and then they have to surround them all a little bit better. And Kyle Okposo, I think, is a great second line player. but they just need to build a first line around Jack Eichel. And it's not Kane, and we're going to talk about Evander Kane as we get into this, and Buffalo, and the fact that they have to move him. Again, we're going to predict not only who we think is going to win the Stanley Cup in this episode, but we're going to talk about who is not going to win the Stanley Cup and who should start trading people like mad. Speaking of which, big deal in the absence of the hockey talk show that was made. Doug Armstrong has re-signed with the St. Louis Blues. We spent a good amount of time on the hockey talk show discussing the fact that there were a bunch of general managers that were available. Lou Lamoriello, one of them. Doug Armstrong, definitely one of them. And the St. Louis Blues put Doug Armstrong's name on the dotted line, and they signed him for 4 years. Armstrong joined the Blues as VP and Vice President of Player Personnel in 2008. He was the 11th general manager in Blues history, named to that position July 1st, 2010, replacing Larry Plew, who was beloved. Signed a 5-year contract in 2013, gets to 2018, and they throw a 4-year deal at him with a team option for a 5th year. What's up, Liz? Good to have you on the show again. I got a couple of guys here on Facebook. Cool to have you guys. Again, let me know in the comments where you guys are listening from, so we know who you want to talk about on the show tonight. The Blues are 337 and 185 and 56 under Armstrong. They are certainly one of the strong teams coming out of the West, certainly Stanley Cup contenders. This guy has built a hell of a team. Remember, Vladimir Tarasenko was a wild card pick. All right. Vladdy Tarasenko was not like a surefire player like, you know, an Ovechkin or a, you know, Sidney Crosby or any of these other guys. Tarasenko was a guy that most people were like, well, you know, can he do it? Can he not do it? You know, and the St. Louis Blues, you know, they picked him. Like, they get the entirety of credit for selecting Vladimir Tarasenko. He was picked 16th overall in the 2010 draft. 16th. So between Larry and at that, what was it, July 1? So, I mean, essentially, Doug Armstrong had taken the reins with Larry in there, and obviously I'm sure they were both working on it together at that point in that transitional period. But that was, you remember, that was the Taylor-Tyler draft. Tyler went 1, Taylor went 2, Brett Connolly, Eric Goodbranson, Cam Fowler. It was a good draft. Brandon Gormley, Mark Pysyk, who where is he right now? Emerson Edom, Derek Forbert, and Ryan Johansson. It was at was that 1 through 10? Johansson was a 10th round pick. Is that right? No, that was not right. What the hell order was I just reading? Oh, Central Scouting Ranks. Was that it? Let's see here. Taylor went 1. Tyler went 2. Sorry, I think I screwed that up the first time around. Goodbranson 3, Johnson went 4. That makes more sense. Islanders selected Nino Niederreiter, Connolly to the Tampa Bay Lightning, Jeff Skinner to the Hurricanes, Burmistrov to the Thrashers. Remember them? Dylan McElrath to the Rangers, Jack Campbell to the Stars, Cam Fowler to the Ducks, Gormley to the Coyotes, Jaden Schwartz to St. Louis at 14. Derek Forbert went to the Kings at 15. And Vladimir Tarasenko was selected 16th overall. Remember back in 2010, too, there was that question of, you know, KHL players and are they going to come over and this and that. But St. Louis put all their eggs in the Tarasenko basket. And I remember people asking if he was the real deal. And St. Louis was like the only team that was like, yeah, he is. He is the real deal. And now look at the dividends he's paying off. So Doug Armstrong, totally deserving to get the 4-year contract, 5th year, a team option, and good for him. Moving through quickly here, just a couple of other housekeeping items. Going back to the Winter Classic again. I thought this was pretty interesting. Brian Giunta named the captain of Team USA. Remember, the NHL deciding to not go to the Olympics this year, not going into the upcoming Olympics, and that leaves a lot of question marks as to who is going to fill out Team Canada and Team USA. They announced the Team USA roster at the Winter Classic. We have a look at it right there. There you go. And you can see some former NHL players in the mix on this one here. Mark Arcobello, Chris Bourque, Bobby Butler, all donning an NHL sweater at one point or another. Brian Giunta in there. Some of the other bigger names, James Wisniewski on defense, got that big shot. Was never really able to stick with an NHL team. Wisniewski got traded a whole ton. And Matt Gilroy, again, another former NHLer making this Team USA roster. So it'll be interesting to see what becomes of them. But it was kind of cool to see Brian Giunta at the Winter Classic yesterday, and to see him answering questions and, talking about wearing the C for the team. Obviously, he's pretty up there in age, and we'll see what Team USA can do. I also want to mention that Matt Gilroy, too, local Long Island kid, North Belmore here in New York, not that far away from where the Hockey Talk Show originates. So congratulations to Matt. Always rooted for the Gilroys. They're a little bit of a clan here on the island, where I was playing high school hockey, which I don't mention all that often because it was pretty embarrassing. But the Gilroy jerseys used to hang from the rafters over there at Iceland in New Hyde Park. And I always remember rooting for Matt in Boston College. And then where did he play for? He played for a bunch. I think he was a Ranger for a little while. Tampa Bay. Oh, do I have it here? Tampa, Ottawa, the Panthers. He bounced around a whole bunch, spending a lot of time in Jokerit the last couple of seasons in the KHL. So good to see Matty Gilroy will be wearing a Team USA jersey. Tony Granato. Yeah, I think he's a head coach. Yeah, Tony Granato, head coach. Very, very deserving. And only one goaltender named, and I'm sure there'll be a couple more goalies. But that just goes to show you how great the talent is in U.S. hockey that is not even in the National Hockey League. It really is unbelievable. One other thing to note, again, this was announced a little while ago, but because we were off for the holiday, we hadn't had a chance to get into and comment on, and it will lead into the second part of our conversation this evening. But the Rangers losing Chris Kreider. Blood clot in his right arm, sidelined indefinitely, not a part of the Winter Classic. Huge hole to fill for the New York Rangers. Of course, you couldn't really tell on the ice at Citi Field yesterday, but it's a big hole for the Rangers to fill, and they have got to figure out something pretty quickly. I want to move over to the standings here. And I was taking a look at this earlier. Let's get into the East so far. There's a couple of teams that I feel really need to be buyers moving into the second part of the season. As we get into 2018 here, you take a look at the standings right now. Washington finally getting above the New Jersey Devils, who have been in that top Metro spot for a long time. Only by 1 point, and they got 2 games. 2 extra games to do it, but the Caps have been playing some amazing hockey these last few weeks, and they have ascended essentially to the top of the toughest division in the National Hockey League. So you got the Caps, you got the Devils, you got the Rangers in there, Tampa, Boston, and Toronto. And you can see down the bottom there the last of the wild card. Columbus and the New York Islanders, who are struggling greatly and only 1 point ahead of the Carolina Hurricanes, who are out of the playoff contention. What's missing from this screen right now? The Pittsburgh Penguins. Unbelievable what's going on with the Pens, and you better believe they're coming. I mean, you take a look at this. I don't have a lot of faith in Florida. I have no faith in Detroit. I don't have a lot of faith in Philly. They've been very hot and cold all year. They're very hot right now, but very hot and cold all year. Even though Florida has won 5 in a row, I still don't like it. The Pens have been hot and cold so far this year. pretty hot and cold. But you look at Carolina, who has managed to stay in the hunt this whole entire time with relatively no one on their roster. No one of significant. I mean, obviously Jeff Skinner, and you got the Stahl brother down there still, but not great. Cam Ward kind of returning back to form. 7-3 in their last 10, which I love, but they're still at a -8 goal differential, which doesn't bode well for any team trying to make it into the playoffs. You know, the Pens are struggling. They are. I'm looking at some good points here in the YouTube chat. -17 goal differential. They do need some help on defense. And believe it or not, the talk around the Pittsburgh Penguins right now is that they're going to trade Chris Letang. I mean, it just seems crazy to me and unbelievable how you can go from the belle of the ball and a #1 D-man to now people are talking about them wanting to trade Chris Letang. I just don't know how genuine some of that talk is. I really don't. But to keep focus, to me, the Islander, out of all of these teams, there are 3 teams on this list. 3 teams in this little list right here, playoff-bound teams, that are screaming for help. And that's the Islanders, the Maple Leafs, and the Rangers. If there are 3 teams that need to add and need to add desperately, it is those 3 teams. I mean, desperately. Could you imagine how lethal the Rangers would be if they actually had some guys who could score? I mean, seriously, think about how lethal the New York Rangers would be if they had some goal scorers, if they weren't entirely relying on Henrik Lundqvist to steal every single game. How incredibly tough would the New York Rangers be? They would be one of the tougher teams to play in the league. They really, really would. I mean, it would be insane. As of right now, they're not that impressive to me because they entirely are hinging on Henrik Lundqvist. Entirely. And I just don't think that that's a great plan going into the playoffs. Now you lose Chris Kreider, and can he come back? Who knows? You got to add if you're the New York Rangers, if you ask me. You have got to add. You got to do it. The Rangers leading point getter right now is Matt Zuccarello with 30 points. He's got 8 goals. Their goal scoring is few and far to come by. The only thing that they really have going for them right now is the fact that it is spread out. They got 4 guys above 10 goals. Rick Nash and Kevin Hayes have 9 goals apiece. They are lucky that Michael Grabner is putting the puck in the net right now. Lucky. Because that's all he can do. Because he's got 18 goals and only 3 assists. He's got to be the only 20 goal scorer that doesn't have 25 points. Like, that is literally the stat he's going to get to. He's going to get to 20 goals and still not have 25 points. But they are relying far too much on Michael Grabner. Believe me, I love number 40. But he can't finish, and he's streaky as heck. And if he goes cold, you're in trouble. You're in a whole lot of trouble. There's just far too many holes for the New York Rangers. They're relying far too much on Henrik Lundqvist and the fact that they have one of the best, coaches in the league. So with Kreider out, the Rangers really have to add. Toronto needs a defenseman in the worst way. Toronto just needs a defenseman. I mean, wherever you have to go, Oliver Ekman-Larsson, Carlson, there's going to be easier defensemen to get than those 2. I think Mike Green is going to be the obvious one to grab. But, I mean, Jesus, get a defenseman already, and everybody will stop questioning you. By the way, and the Leafs have gone through a tough stretch, 4-5-1. They're still a great team, and I think Babcock is holding them back, and I think at some point he's going to unleash them. I really believe this. I really believe that Mike Babcock's conservative style is going to stop relatively soon, and come the end of the season, he is going to let those dogs run again. I really believe that, and they are going to be extremely dangerous. but you better have a better top 6 back there in the event of whatever. Because what you have right now is not going to cut it whatsoever. Liz, it's so surprising that Grabner is pulling it out this year. He's so damn fast, but he isn't a great all-around player. He is the worst all-around player I've ever seen take the ice in the National Hockey. I've never seen a guy get more breakaways and be more snake-bitten than Michael Grabner. If he converted on 3% more of his chances, he would be the leading scorer. He would be beating Gretzky. Honest to goodness, he would have more points than Gretzky. If 3%, if that just 3% more, if he converted on his chances, he would absolutely be beating Gretzky in the points department. Career. I'm telling you, he gets more opportunities than I've ever seen. There's something about, and I give all the credit in the world to Alain Vigneault on this one. I think he's given Grabner the confidence that he needs. Honest to goodness. And the problem with it, though, is once we hit the offseason, I'm pretty sure Grabner's a free agent, and you're going to have to pay up and pony up for him, which really makes me hate this team even further, because if you lose Grabner and you decide not to pay Grabner, where does that leave you? And then there's this other uncomfortable position for Jeff Gordon, where if you do pony up and pay him, which everybody would understand, is he going to become lazy like most free agents do when they get to New York and get a big payday and not put up the points anymore? You know, don't forget, Grabner was here to prove himself last year, and now he's in a contract year. So he's had literally nothing to lose for the last 2 seasons, and that is a world of difference when you're relied upon to be the guy. Because it doesn't matter if he's the leading goal scorer for the Rangers for the rest of the way, he's still not the guy. He's playing with house money. So I think there's a lot with Grabner and the Rangers moving forward. I think the Leafs, Eddie, yes, will definitely trade Bozak if they're going to move anybody. He seems like the fit. I would not move on Marner or the big two. Mitch Marner, I think is too potentially amazing to make a move on. You know, a lot of people have been talking about, well, we'll trade Mitch Marner, and like, when obviously, you know, Austin Matthews is not going anywhere, and this is a three player team with Mitch Marner, Austin Matthews, and William Nylander. And William Nylander was doing good. People were like, well, maybe trade Mitch Marner. And then Mitch Marner started playing good, and Nylander cooled off. And they're like, well, maybe trade Nylander. I don't think you have to do either. I think it's Bozak. You won't get a ton in return, but throw a pick together with Bozak, and you can get the defenseman that you need. I would hate for them to trade Nazem Kadri, but I honestly wouldn't rule it out. If things came down to it, then I would do it. Yeah, it's a Nylander, Matthews, Marner team, and that's your core forwards. And, you know, everybody else who you can throw around them. They seem to love Zach Hyman. They love Connor Brown. You know, these are good role guys. Matt Martin's killer. Dominic Moore not doing as well as I thought he would. I'm a big fan of Dominic Moore's. And James Van Riemsdyk, keep him in the fold. Now that the cap is going up next year, I think the Leafs can easily sign him and get him under the mix. I know, I'm with you, man. I wouldn't want to trade Nazem Kadri either, but if you had a chance to really pull in somebody pretty decent, I would do it. You know, if nobody's biting on Bozak, what choice do you have? Seriously, you're Lou Lamoriello. Nobody's interested in Tyler Bozak. Where do you go? You've got to add this year. You've got to. I mean, the teams that are in this league are far too good for you to not add going into if you're one of the teams that's competing for it. And let's be honest. Let's talk about the 500-pound elephant in the room. It's wearing a Tampa Bay Lightning jersey. Okay? You have to build a team that can compete with the Tampa Bay Lightning. You have to do it. That's why, to me, it's pitiful to be sitting here talking about the New York Rangers and the Boston Bruins and the Islanders to a degree, because do you have a team that could beat the Tampa Bay Lightning? That is the absolute team to beat in the East. You've got to figure that out. You're not putting a team together to just make a run. You got to figure out how you're going to beat the Tampa Bay Lightning. And if you're Toronto, you're not going to do it without another defenseman. leads me to my next point, Liz. 51 plus goal differential. Are you kidding me? They have doubled up on the league. Doubled up on the league. I mean, nobody's even close. Nobody's even close. If you don't think the Tampa Bay Lightning are the leading candidates to win the Stanley Cup, you're insane. Insane. Although you might hate me for who I'm going to pick coming out of the West. So anyway, going through this, the teams that must add, the Islanders, Toronto, and the Rangers if they want to have a chance to compete. I love the Devils, but I think that they are vulnerable in a 7-game series. The Caps, your guess is as good as mine. Is this the year? This is certainly not the best team that they've ever had. I would not be surprised, though, if they're in the Eastern Conference Finals. But you better believe coming out of the other side of this, whoever emerges from the Metro, that the Tampa Bay Lightning are going to be sitting there waiting for them. They are absolutely going to be sitting there waiting for them. The final wild card spot is a death sentence. It is an absolute death sentence. Whoever sneaks into that final wild card spot is dead. Dead team walking. Because there's no way you're beating the Tampa Bay Lightning in a first round series. No way. Absolutely not. Never happening. Never happening. Can Washington be upset in a first round series? Absolutely. They almost were upset by the New York Islanders a couple of years ago. They've certainly, traded their barbs with the Pittsburgh Penguins. But the only way the Tampa Bay Lightning has some struggles in the first round is if the Pittsburgh Penguins grab that final wild card spot. It's the only way it happens. It's the only way it happens. I think Pittsburgh, even though they're out of it right now, are the absolute only team that can give Tampa Bay a run in that first round. The only team. If Pittsburgh can get there into the finals and it's Pitt and Tampa, that would be interesting too. But right now, I don't have a ton of faith in the Pittsburgh Penguins, even though I believe they were my pick at the beginning of the year to go back to the Stanley Cup Finals. I still am not ruling them out. You can't. You're not with Crosby, Malkin, and 81. You just can't do it. But I don't like how their game has gone so far. They're complacent. They're a little lazy. They're defensively a liability. And let's be honest, they've played more hockey than anybody else in the last 2 seasons. I think we're finally starting to see it take its toll on itself. How they bounce back after the All-Star game and after the 5-game break, we'll have to wait and see. What? Oh, right over there. So that we'll have to wait and see. Do you want to come say hi to everybody? No. Okay. Do you want to pick a Stanley Cup winner? Tampa? I don't think that was a Tampa vote. When they get their All-Star game break, when they get their 5-game mandatory break, let's see how Pittsburgh bounces back from that. Because that's the only way I could see them actually making a run. And again, you can't take them out of it. They're still only 3 points behind the Islanders in the last spot. But again, minus 17 goal differential. Something to think about. So out of the East, I like Washington, believe it or not. I like Toronto a bunch. I think if the Islanders can get their act together, the Islanders need a defenseman, and the Islanders need to call back Joshua Ho-Sang up. They just look lackluster. Got a beating in Colorado the other night on the New Year's Eve. Doug Weight tossed out of the game. They called up Sebastian Aho for that game. Coming out of the minors, they got a lot of D that are hurt right now. He didn't work. Tanner Fritz has now been called up. Steve Bernier, Anthony Beauvillier sent back down. They're a team that is hitting that midseason dog days of summer or dog days of winter run in the middle of the season, 40-game stretch, and they're starting to get tired. And that's not the eye or the tiger that a team heading for the playoffs needs to have. Looking over at our so let me surmise coming out of the East. The wild cards are really something interesting. I think Tampa easily comes out of the East into the Stanley Cup Finals. Who plays Tampa? Probably Washington. Is this another year that Washington loses and doesn't make it to the Stanley Cup final? It's depressing. My pick coming out of the East by far is the Tampa Bay Lightning. Moving over to the Western Conference, and we'll bring it up for you on the screen and move everything over here. Take a look at this here. Winnipeg, Nashville, St. Louis right now. What happened to St. Louis? 3-7 in their last 10. Honestly, one of the better teams in the West and in the league, and they're 3-7 in their last 10. Much like the Islanders going through a little bit of a hard time. Anaheim has picked up their game 6-3-1. They slide into a wild card spot. The Adam Henrique Vatanen trade was obviously good for them. It has helped them stave off all the injuries that they've had. Dallas has been mediocre. Dallas is like as middle class of a team as you can get. As middle class of a team, like not great, not horrible. Right there in the middle. And then you have the Pacific with Vegas, LA, and San Jose, Winnipeg, Nashville, and St. Louis coming out of the Central. Let's not take for granted St. Louis. You got to obviously pay your respects to Nashville. They went out. They got Kyle Torres. That proved to be a pretty good deal for them. And Winnipeg finally needs to be taken seriously because Connor Hellebuck has just made sure that nobody laughs at the Winnipeg Jets anymore. He's made them a very, very tough team to play against. I didn't think this would be the case because I thought the Metro Division was the best division in hockey, and I still believe that. But honestly, look at that Central. Who do you pick coming out of the Central? I mean, Jesus, that's just tough. That is just a tough pick. That Central Division is really good. I mean, really, really good. Let's not forget Minnesota knocking on the door, right, with 43 points. Chicago. Is this the year that Chicago doesn't make the playoffs? Can you imagine a scenario in the National Hockey League where Chicago and Pittsburgh miss the playoffs? A scenario where Kane, Taves, Malkin, and Crosby are not in the Stanley Cup playoffs. That seems crazy. But it's just a testament to the turnover of the league and how good Nashville has become. Winnipeg needs to be taken seriously in the Central. You know? Anaheim. Calgary. These teams are all playing great. Out of the West, in a Western Conference final, and I think we're going to see a hell of a matchup between Nashville and St. Louis at some point. My heart is with St. Louis, too. My heart is with St. Louis. A Nashville repeat, I don't know. I'm rooting for them, too, for David Boyle's sake. And because, honestly, how much fun was it watching the Preds in the finals last year? It was just fun. How much were you dying to go down to Nashville to see a game? I'm predicting that you're predicting Vegas. Yeah. I think St. Louis will play Vegas in the Western Conference final. And call me absolutely batshit crazy. But I think that the Vegas Golden Knights are going to the Stanley Cup finals. I really, in my heart of hearts, I really do. Vegas has a plus 26 goal differential. They are the closest to the Tampa Bay Lightning's plus 51. Vegas is 9-0-1 in their last 10. They're on a 7-game winning streak. They are practically unbeatable at home, 16-2-1. They have a 2-time Stanley Cup champion goaltender who is the face of their franchise and has come back off a concussion and looked damn fine. And if he ain't ready, Malcolm Subban has looked pretty damn good too. And they've gone to show that they could get away with they can get away with the New York Islanders goaltending right now. Their system of play is so damn good. Between Schmidt and Miller and the way that D moves the puck up the ice, you watch them. It's like you can't be claustrophobic and watch the Vegas Golden Knights, because that's exactly what they do to the other team. They just suffocate other teams. They play one of the best team systems I have ever seen. And you add on top of that the scoring touch of James Neal and Marchessault and William Karlsson and what he's done, scored the first hat trick in franchise history. Guys, I mean, come on. How are you not looking at Vegas? And by the way, and I don't know where it was I read this, but still, and the hockey pundits in Toronto, they still feel like Vegas is going to be trading some assets at the deadline. It makes me want to stab my eye out with an Apple Pencil. It really does. I don't see how anybody still thinks that this team with a 26 goal differential, 54 points, is in a position to trade off assets. They have all the cap space in the world. The cap is going up. They're first in the Pacific. I mean, there's just nothing about this team that I see them trading anybody. I don't even see them adding at the deadline, because you don't even want to mess up the chemistry you have. I wouldn't want to see a good player come into this. No way. I mean, a depth signing or a depth move, fine. But I wouldn't mess with this chemistry one bit. If I was George McPhee, I'd keep my feet up on the desk and my hands up like, this is my impression of George McPhee. This is my impression of George McPhee these last couple of months. There's George McPhee. There he is. There's George McPhee. Don't stop doing what you're doing, George. Don't stop it. Guy has built an unbelievable team. Picked a coach that the dumb Florida Panthers never should have gotten rid of. They've got goal scoring. They've got a team concept. They've got great coaching. They've got world-class goaltending. I mean, they've got depth. How is nobody, seeing this? I think they easily get out of the first round no matter who they get in the wild card if they stay there. And if they find themselves in a 2-3 position, it'll either be with Los Angeles or San Jose, which I think that they can handle both of those franchises. Even though I think that Los Angeles would be tough. I think that Los Angeles definitely has the potential to beat them. And then you have them, going up against St. Louis, Nashville, or Winnipeg coming out of the Central. And I'd pick them over every one of those teams. Every single one of those teams. Winnipeg is too inexperienced. Nashville does not have the scoring ability. And St. Louis is just a little too hot and cold for me. A little too hot and cold. Injuries with Jaden Schwartz and whatever that is. And whenever is he back? I don't even know. I love St. Louis to come out. But when push comes to shove, I just think that Vegas has the better goaltending. And I think that they have a little bit more scoring excitement than St. Louis does. I just do. And again, their ability to win at home is unbelievable. Credit all the strippers in Las Vegas for helping them out. 12th man. In Seattle, how they have that 12th man? I think in Vegas, they're hanging 12th man flags in strip clubs. That's what I think. That's my opinion. I have not seen it, but if I had to guess, that's what it would be. As strong as I feel about ripping the roof off of Madison Square Garden so Lundqvist will go undefeated for the rest of his career is how I feel about the fact that they're hanging, 12th man on the ice. Well, it wouldn't be 12th man on the ice, right? 6th man, 7th man on the ice. Banners in Vegas strip clubs. That's just what I think. Could you imagine a Vegas, Tampa Bay Stanley Cup final? That would be a ratings disaster. Nobody would care about that. But as a hockey fan, you'd have to be really excited about it. Imagine Vasilevsky against Fleury. Marchessault and Neal versus Stamkos and Kucherov. That's an exciting matchup. Flags are on all the brass poles. I believe that to be true. I do. I believe it to be true. Vegas and Tampa is who I'm picking for the Stanley Cup final. And, I love Vegas, but I don't think anybody's beating the Tampa Bay Lightning. They will be the Stanley Cup champions this year. That is my absolute prediction. I was going to go the other way and see who we're going to trade, but honestly, we were a little bit out of time for tonight's 10 minutes to 7, so I'm going to end it there. I'll give a little tease, though, because maybe we'll cover it tomorrow. As far as the teams that absolutely have to sell for the sake of their own franchises and the franchises that I named prior, Islanders, Rangers, Toronto. Detroit's got to sell. Ottawa has to sell. Edmonton should sell. The Montreal Canadiens have to sell. I think the Montreal Canadiens will be the biggest sellers. Thomas Plekanec is a free agent next season. Ales Hemsky is a free agent next season. You've got 1 more year left on the contract for 2 more years, for Alex Galchenyuk. They have to move him. They have to get him out. Shea Weber's there forever. Their defense needs help. Jeff Petrie is there forever. Carl Arlsner is a mistake of a signing. They'll have to recover from that. But they got to get out from underneath the contracts of Brendan Gallagher and Max Pacioretty. Everybody seems to think that they are going to sell him. And I'm not that confident in it, but he only has 1 year left on his deal. So I wouldn't be surprised if Max goes and Shea Weber's wearing the C by the trade deadline. So we'll wait and see. Montreal and Ottawa are going to be the big sellers, and I don't know who Ottawa really moves, although everybody in the Ottawa scene seems to think that they're going to move everybody except for Matt Duchene and Erik Karlsson, and that's pretty ironic to me because I think it makes the most sense to move Erik Karlsson this season before next. I just don't foresee them re-signing him, or if they do, they're not going to commit any more money to re-sign anybody else. And you've got to know that if you're Erik Karlsson, so why would you stay? I don't think that the Ottawa Senators want to give Karlsson $9 million, but I think they will. And then where does that leave you to go out and get anybody else that you need? Again, you're still paying Dion Phaneuf $7 million a year to essentially not give you $7 million a year worth of minutes on the ice. And you're still paying Bobby Ryan $7.25 million a year. So those are two really bad, hurtful contracts on the Ottawa Senators team that they definitely need to figure out. Can you make the match between Ottawa, Montreal, Edmonton, Detroit, and the Islanders, Rangers, and Toronto? Where do you see the matchups coming from? Leave your comments below. Awesome to be back with you guys. Enjoy the hockey action for tonight. There's a whole slew of games this evening, Tampa and Toronto. That should be a good one. We'll see what Toronto is made of coming into the Tampa Bay Lightning. Toronto's at home. Should be a little bit of an advantage for them. I still like Tampa in that matchup tonight. Isles in Boston. Can the Islanders turn this around? If they slide against Boston and Boston gains ground on them, the Islanders, I think, need to make a move and need to make a move before the All-Star game. Pittsburgh and the Flyers, Battle of Pennsylvania. Let's see where those teams are at. Again, Philly, very streaky. Pittsburgh, can they put it on and put it together? Washington and Carolina is a great Eastern Conference matchup in that Atlantic Division. I like to see that game. San Jose should easily beat Montreal. Devils in St. Louis will be a heck of a matchup. Florida and Minnesota, give me the Cats. Columbus, I'll take them over Dallas. Winnipeg over Colorado. Kings over Edmonton. And Anaheim and Vancouver. Give me the upset with Vancouver. Vegas Golden Knights and Nashville Predators could be a playoff matchup. We'll watch that one. Give me the Vegas Golden Knights at home. They only lost 2 games in regulation there. I'll take them for this evening. Again, if you're on Facebook or YouTube Live, appreciate you guys always being here. It's awesome. Make sure to hit that like button, share it around if you can. And don't forget, not only on Stitcher, not only on iTunes, not only on the TuneIn Radio app, but we just added Spotify to our roster of places where you can take in the Hockey Talk Show. So let your friends know you can listen to the Hockey Talk Show in its podcast form on Spotify now. Just go to Spotify and search Hockey Talk Show. All of our episodes, including tonight's, will be up there momentarily. Rate and review wherever you're listening on the podcast, and thanks for doing that. And remember to spread the word on the Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Eddie, Vegas 5, Nashville 3. I'm down with that. I can get down with that. I can get down with that for sure. Have a great night watching hockey, guys. I will